All right.
Folks, we are
Folks.
back. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to another episode of Always Almost There Day After Show Live. We are here today. I'm coming to you live from somewhere in Washington State en route to Seattle for tonight's show. But we are here to talk about last night in Montana. As always, I'm joined by my good friend Neil. Neil, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Stayed up for the whole show last night, which Mountain Time, not easy to stay up for on the East Coast. Yeah. Definitely did the whole thing. So a little sleepy today, but slept in. Yeah. Feel great.
Well, tonight actually is an earlier show time than last night, so works out.
Yes, well. And we are now in PST, right?
Correct. We are in Pacific time now. Tonight's show is 6:30 Pacific. So that's good news for you East Coasters who only have to stay up until 1 a.m. And not 3, like we might have. Yeah, only 1 a.m. You can do it. But like, as always, we've got at like the old days. Yeah, exactly. Watching someone's grainy cell phone footage in February
2022
at 2:30 in the morning. Yeah. Oh boy. All right. Well, let's dive into last night's show. Of course, we've got a guest today. We've got James joining us from somewhere in Idaho. James, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Ryan. Neil, really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for being on.
Yeah, of course. It was great to meet you the other day. Glad you're able to join us today. Looking forward to diving into last night's show. So let's not waste any more time. James, take us through your pre-show vibe, getting to the venue. Where did you end up? What was going on?
For sure. So I had a pit ticket, same as 2 nights ago. And I drove in from Las Vegas, drove up to Montana, decided to get a parking pass and spent some time in the parking lot. I got there pretty early. I think the gates opened at 5 and I was probably in there at like 5:30. Met lots of really cool people from all over the country that were following this tour. Probably a lot of people going to the show tonight. So spent a lot of time in the parking lot, then went down to the pit, and both nights I was in about the same spot, like Peter's side, maybe 3rd row from the back in the pit. Nice and warm down there.
I was muted again. Thanks, Neil. It was a little windy before the show. And so, yeah, we were hanging around. I was like, oh, it was definitely colder than it was on Thursday night. But I was like, oh, is it going to be fine? And I feel like if you were on the lawn, it might have been a little chillier. But once you got into the seats and especially in the pit, I'm sure it definitely was a little warm. Very, very comfortable temperature for a, late September or mid-September show. Happy fall, by the way, officially today. Yeah, it did look pretty packed in there. James, did you have like ample dancing room, or was it a little tight for you?
Last night was definitely tighter than Thursday. Thursday there was a lot of space. Last night it was pretty packed. But it was not overpacked. I've been to some venues where you literally can't move and you're stuck just going up and down, and this was not like that. I mean, these 2 shows are my first time at the Kettle House. And it's a great venue. I thought there was plenty of space. It was easy to get in, get out. I'm really glad I went with the pit. I wasn't sure when I entered the lottery. I wasn't sure what kind of ticket, but I was like, you can't go wrong going for the pit.
100%. Yeah, and the lawn definitely looked a lot more full last night than it was on Thursday. So that was great. Like I think it looked pretty close to a sellout last night. I think the capacity is like 4,200. So I'd put it somewhere around 38, 39, if I had to guess, maybe close to 4,000. But definitely more people than Thursday night, which was great to see. Friday night, people were excited. Missoula was busier yesterday because there was like a big college football game today. So people were packing in. But yeah, let's get into the show here. Oh, sorry, my pre-show vibe. I was excited. Met up with some great people, hanging out. My mom and I went in pretty close to doors, a little bit earlier yesterday. And we hung out by the bar, like Trevor's side. There's like this upper bar with like some like couches and whatever. We were hanging out with a great group of people, chatting about various things. My mom took a funny picture of me explaining things to people, which Neil, I'm surprised you haven't commented on yet. But
when I find it will be memed. Yeah. I know. I have not seen it.
No, there was good discourse about Dawn not being a song. and various
Man,
other
that was a thing yesterday.
good topics.
Man.
It was good. And it was good because the person that asked me hadn't seen the online discourse. And so, yeah, explaining things, that's how it goes. Anyway, we were in the same spot, Trevor side, that we were on Thursday night. Absolutely a phenomenal view. Again, not a bad sight line in the house. But let's get started with the first 3 songs of the set here. James, tell us your thoughts on My Mind Has Been Consumed by Media, One More Day, and Dr. Darkness.
Okay. So I was really excited to start with My Mind Has Been Consumed by Media. I actually, I've been a little bit behind listening to all the shows, so I listened to that song for the first time when I was driving up from Vegas last week. And
Nice.
I thought it was just like a really funky tune. It's a nice short song, so great Kickstarter for the show. I really enjoyed that one, and that was the first time I had heard Cotter sing. So that was pretty cool for me. One More Day. That one, I keep going back to the version from I think it was the Mousetrap 2019.
Yeah.
Like I listen to that show all the time, and so that's whenever I'm listening to that song, that's the version I'm listening to, and to hear them play it, I'd never heard them play it live, being at one of the shows before, so I really enjoyed that one. Dr. Darkness, to be honest, it's not one of my favorite songs, but I like how they fit it in there. I thought it was good in the 3 slot right there, and it kind of the first set was it was really interesting to me because they did a lot of shorter songs, especially at the beginning, and you could
100%.
tell that they were working up to something later in the set. I'm always a big fan of those types of sets.
Yeah, definitely felt a little songier to start last night. I did really like My Mind Has Been Consumed by Media as an opener. I do think, they're doing that extended synth intro the last couple of times, unlike the one in Boston. I think it might be a little too long, just kind of hanging out in that groove with Peter playing synth, which I love, but, hop into the song. But it's a great one, catchy, dancey. Cotter sings. He was in quite the outfit last night. For the second show in a row. One More Day was great. I think I had only heard this song a couple of times before. I didn't recognize it right away. But this is a huge bust out. You mentioned the Mousetrap one. That's the last time they played it. So this was Jeff and Cotter's first time playing One More Day.
Oh, wow.
307 shows since the last One More Day, which is unbelievable. And I thought the song was amazing. Honestly, not being familiar with it as much. This is immediately up the list of my favorite Goose covers. I thought Rick absolutely killed the vocal performance. The band nailed the song. And I mean, listening, if you go back and listen to the 2019 one, I feel like the sound probably is just so much more full now. Peter being on the real organ, so many, Jeff being on percussion, it was great. I loved it. And then Dr. Darkness. Yeah, I agree, James. Initially, I was like, Dr. Darkness again. But yeah, I thought it really worked well in this slot. Neil.
Yeah. I mean, My Mind Has Been Consumed by Media I like it in the opener slot. It gets a little different flavor in there, which, I've been harping on. Those first 3 songs feel like, most shows, it feels like exactly the same. It's just like a few slight changes there. So that one in there felt good. This one seemed a little bit longer than the previous versions. Maybe that's just in my head. And then, yeah, One More Day, cover bust out for second song of the day, which, that's an excellent song. If you've never listened to the Wood Brothers version, you should go listen to that because it's really good. Yeah, it's just, you got your Dr. Darkness. There's your standard first 3 song. They had to get one in there, opener. Right? So, yeah, there it is. So, yeah, exactly. It's all right. It's an all right start to the show.
Yeah. But then we get into it. This Indian River, it's good. Indian River, you get the Delta, and then suddenly everything changes in the last 2 minutes. And immediately, my mom loves when I react in funny ways to jams that are happening. And this is one of those moments, Neil, when I start cackling.
Yep. I've heard the cackle.
So this happened during the Indian River last night. I was expecting initially when they kind of collapsed into that dark area, I was like, okay, Rick's gonna do that back into the Delta peak, and then they didn't, and I was like, let's fucking go. Like this was like amazing. Like Rick and Peter chasing each other, Trevor doing cool shit, and just in the darkness in a different way than we've seen from them before. You know, like no synths in this one. It's just like dissonance and them just chasing each other around their instruments, which was so cool. I want to hear more of this. James, what were your thoughts here?
Yeah, the Indian River was great. I love when they started. They play so many different versions of Indian River, and I've heard a bunch of different ones. This one is my favorite with the Welcome to Delta jam. I was expecting the same thing as you, where they kind of slowed it down, and I was expecting them to slowly build it back up. And man, I got lost during that song. Like I don't even remember the transition after that. I was just like eyes closed, dancing. I was loving it.
Yeah, I mean the last couple of minutes of this song, this has been happening throughout the last few shows where we're not getting extended jams in the shows, but you're getting glimpses of just total brilliance, and that is what you have here. I absolutely love the unresolved tension in this. I tweeted about this earlier, like build up a whole ton of tension and don't do a release. That's so good. And then the descending chromatic thing that Peter and Rick are doing is really cool. I mean, they linked up just like that on it. It was just perfect, as though they practiced it, which I doubt they had. And that gave it like a whole different vibe. So you just have this like, this anxiety building tension. And then you have this just, this descending chromatic thing that makes you feel like you're falling, like after all that tension. It's just like the way they did it was perfect. No big peak to get out of that, just like total weirdness. And then further going down into, the black hole, and absolutely killer stuff. This is one of my, favorite moments of the night. This and what comes after.
100%. Yeah. And I mean, the segue into Big Modern was good. I'll give them that. But we've talked about this a lot the last few days. I was hoping that the jam would keep going, from somewhere. Like, Indian River was only a total of around like 14 minutes, I think. So I was hoping for a little more out of that one. But I mean, can't complain about Big Modern because Big Modern is awesome. And I will say, for a song that this is the fourth time they've played it, the Montana crowd was like amped for Big Modern. Like everybody was so excited about this song. I couldn't tell how many people were like super familiar with the song or just like, hell yeah, this song is awesome. Montana.
It's good for that Montana crowd.
Yeah, I was gonna say buy a pickup truck. I wonder how the dealerships around Missoula are doing today.
They're big fans of pickup trucks and cowboy boots out there in Missoula,
there we go.
Montana.
But
so, yeah.
when they got, I posted a video on Twitter that I took during the first heavy metal kind of breakdown thing, and it was just like everybody going crazy. And then I stopped the video before they went back into the chorus. But there was this moment where they went back into the chorus and everybody just cheered. Like it was awesome. And then, I mean, the jam, amazing. I want to call Rick out for this particularly egregious rip chord here. Right as Peter was starting to do some of the coolest shit I've ever heard him do with the synthesizer, Rick was like, now we're done. So that was another cackling moment too. But I was like, oh man,
this jam was very good.
Getting going. Yep. James, what did you think of this Big Modern?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. So like I said before, I was a little bit behind on the shows. So this was the first time I had heard Big Modern. Like I saw it on the set list, but I didn't know what it was. And a lot of the people that were in my area, they had seen some Goose shows, but they weren't super hardcore fans. So we were all looking at each other like, hey, like what are they playing? And immediately we all got into it. And that song is a blast. It was the energy was so high in my area when that song was going on, and especially when they brought it back at the end. Like that chorus is incredible. I actually listened on my way down here. I listened to like the 30+ minute version from New Jersey, and it was awesome too.
Yeah, this jam is pretty cool. So what I hear when I listen to this jam, and it actually happened a couple times in this night where they just kind of tried on another song in the jam section here, but I heard a lot of Interlude 2 / Jive 1 throughout the jam here, and it was really neat. It was like kind of, super like ethereal and psychedelic Jive 1, and I don't know. It's awesome. I mean, so like far enough away from Drive One where like you might not initially hear it when you're listening to the jam, but I think the chords are in there for sure, and the result is pretty darn awesome. Shorter version, like you said, Ryan, which has been kind of the case for the last several shows. Which it seems like anytime they're getting anywhere good, the band just kind of shies away and says like, "All right, let's move on to the next song." We talked about it a bunch yesterday. We talked about it the other day as well. This is where it's like really happening. I think these two songs, you think about this Indian River and you think about this Big Modern, they were really onto something here where if they were willing to flesh these ideas out, they probably would have found some pretty amazing space because the band was really, really clicking.
And Indian River, I'll give them the segue there because that's a jam space that we know that they don't like to stay in for very long outside of like the Westville Rockdale. But for the most part, they'll get into that kind of dissonant, chromatic, whatever thing for a little bit, and then they'll either segue or go back into a peak. So I'll give them the segue there. But Big Modern felt like the whole band was really going in this darker direction, and they were really taking off. And Rick kind of forcibly, pulled the ripcord and took them back into the ending. So, that was one of my biggest things last night. And we'll talk about a different kind of perspective on it in the second set. But I think this is now 4 shows without a 20-minute jam, or 3. Oh, it's 3 shows. It feels like longer. But I think the last 20-minute jam was in Iowa, which is odd for Goose to go 3 shows without playing anything for 20 minutes, whether it's a super deep jam or not. And one of the things that I said, I after my tweet the other night where I talked about, my disappointment at the lack of jamming the last couple of shows, and someone was like, well, not everything needs to be 20 minutes. And my response to that, I just want to clarify, I don't really care about the length as much as I do them fleshing out jamming ideas. And we talked about this yesterday, but like, Neil, you agree, like one of our favorite jams ever is the San Francisco Wisteria from 2022, which is 17 minutes. But great. They get there, they flesh out the idea. It's incredible. And it feels like the last few shows, they've been touching on these ideas, as we just mentioned, but not going the extra distance to really go for it. James, I'm curious if you feel a similar way about this.
Yeah, no, I totally do. I'm optimistic, though. I think what we're seeing is the building of a base for them to expand on in the future. I mean, their songs sound so different this year than they did last year. They've changed 100%. A lot of different things, and they're trying all these new sounds that I've never heard them do before. And yeah, I agree with you. I think they were in some great spaces that could have been extended, but I think it's going to happen. I'm enjoying what we got right now, and I just think it's going to get better.
There we go. So first set closes out with Seekers and then Hot Tea. Optimal Seekers placement. Good bathroom break. Needed it after the Big Modern. But a lot of fun. And again, the energy last night was so good. Like, the band is playing really, really well right now. I really want to emphasize that. Like, while there are a lack of huge jams, it's not like tours in the past where there have been a lack of huge jams where they will play like a dud show, for example, where it's just like, wow, that show wasn't very good. I feel like you're still looking at all of these shows and being like, wow, that was a great show, but it's just missing improv, so depends on how you look at it. Some people may think it was more great than others, but I think the way they're playing right now, it's just still very good. And everybody was loving it. Everyone was having a good time.
Just to add on that, I think they're playing above what you would like. If you read the set list and you're like, oh, no 20-minute jams, like a bunch of songs, it kind of looks haphazard. It might not look like the best set list, but then when you're listening to that show, everything flowed so perfectly. I was very, very impressed with the last 2 shows. Even though you're right, we didn't get a 20-minute jam, which I was, always love the long jams, because you can kind of just sit in and focus directly on one song for a while. But it's okay. I was really happy with this type of show too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and my mom mentioned Jeff last night. I think he was having the most fun in the band last night, which doesn't happen often. But there was a lot of standing. There was a lot of playing. The guitar was very audible in the mix. There was a lot going on back there. last night. So
was he playing the new guitar last night? I didn't watch the video.
He was playing the new guitar in the first set and then went back to his older one for a bit in the second set.
Got it.
But they sound good. Neil, anything to add on Seekers and Tea before we move on?
No, nothing to add on Seekers and Tea. I do like the extended kind of. There's a little bit of jamming that you get in Tea now, and I like it as a set one closer. That's actually a great spot for it. Now that they're getting different songs and kind of mixing up the catalog a little bit, that's a great place for it. And yeah, they're just doing creative set listing things, which we'll talk about in set 2, because I think set 2 actually is a really, really unique set list. And
very. 100%.
Yeah, it's just interesting stuff. But
well, before we get there,
break first.
Legs asked, did he play kazoo? I did not see kazoo last night. It was missing from the tee. I also may have missed it, but I did not see kazoo last night.
Well, tonight maybe we get the hot cross buns with Jeff on recorder. That's what I'm
solo hot cross buns, Neil. We know you're good at manifesting things, and I think this has to happen. You're in Seattle, a city known for its hot cross buns.
Is that true?
Do it. Yeah. What do you mean?
Okay. Wow. I didn't know that.
We never say things on the pod that aren't true. This is a very serious enterprise.
Serious podcast.
James, what was your set break vibe like? What were you looking forward to in set 2?
I wasn't really sure what to expect. I always try, I'll look at the set list of the shows before the one I'm going to and try to predict. Drive is one of my favorites. I hadn't seen it in a few days. I was kind of hoping we would get one in this run. I was definitely surprised by some of the songs in set 2. I know we'll get to it, but I think it's kind of funny to point out they've played Skuck's Life 3 times now total, and I've been to 2 of them live, and I haven't been to that many Goose shows. I think this was 13 and 14 for me, so I guess I'm a magnet for that song.
You're just going to beautiful venues. That's what that tells you, is you hit the good spots there, James.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's where they're playing Skuck's Life.
Yeah, that's where they're playing.
But let's dive into set 2 here. I think my only thing at set break was Tumble's happening. That was all I knew. Tumble was coming. Tumble was due. Some might say easiest 8-pointer of the tour.
I was also skeptical.
Neil wouldn't. But we open up the set here with Yeti. Neil, I know you have a lot to say about this Yeti.
I don't have a lot to say about this Yeti. I mean, there were definitely some people feeling that there was a little bit of Get Lucky, the Daft Punk song, in there. And I definitely hear it, but I think that's just Peter strumming one chord, and you can't really call that necessarily a playing of the song. But yeah, so the interesting thing about Yeti is that this song has now changed. It is now a banger. I think they consider it a banger. But they put it in the big jam slot, that set 2 opener. And then they took it for a ride for about 15 minutes. And the result is actually a really fun jam. So there are Yeti haters out there. And I say to those Yeti haters, get used to this song, because the way they play it now is really good, and they seem to like it. And they're going to put it in really big slots in the show like they did for this show. So
agreed. Yeah. Second consecutive Yeti to open a second set. This one obviously without the pumped up kicks. But yeah, I like it in this slot a lot, especially as you said, Neil. It's doing things now. And there's they're kind of playing with the structure of the jam a little bit. We started this year with just the straight funk jam, and then this tour, they've been doing that kind of little bit of a space out before they drop in, and then Rick does that Daft Punky chord progression, and they kind of then go into the funk and then back to the Daft Punky thing, and so there's a lot of moving pieces in the Yeti jam right now, but I really like what they're doing with it. James, what were your thoughts?
Yeti was one of the highlights for me. I'm kind of with you, Neil. I think that song is probably the most improved of the year, just in my opinion. It used to be one of those where it was kind of standard. You knew what you were going to get each time. It was okay for me. And then they came out with that one last year that made the bracket. I think it was the shortest song in the bracket, and everyone loved it. It was a huge dance party. Yeah, the Fox one. And since then, starting off this year with the Capitol Theater, they did that for an encore, I think, and I've loved it every time. Now I'm excited to get a Yeti, where before I was kind of indifferent. And I also like how they're mixing it up each time. So they go into the jam and you don't know what you're going to get, but every time you're going to get something good. I'm really waiting. I want to see them give it the treatment. We'll give it like a 25-minute Yeti that
Yes.
I could see it happening. Because they're doing so many different things. Just start putting all that together, and then we get some magic.
100% agree. Waiting for it. And then we get Skuck's Life coming out of the Yeti. You know, this is one of those things, like, not my favorite placement for this song. You know, especially just because at this point in the set, I'm like, I'm looking for the big jam, you know, and Skuck's Life was great. Excited to, you know, see it in regular rotation, you know, now knowing it a little better after seeing it at Westville at the end of June. But it was very good, you know, whether people were familiar with it or not, you know, kept the energy going. I thought it was pretty good. Yeah. James?
I definitely enjoyed this one more than the one at Red Rocks the first time they played it. I think there it was the crowd lost a lot of energy. I forget what song they were coming out of. I think it was like maybe an Arrow or a Tumble or something
Redbird.
big, and they trend Redbird. That's what it was. And yeah, like the crowd around me, I remember at that show lost some energy because nobody really knew what the song was. And even now, I still don't think a lot of people knew, but the energy continued this time. People were definitely into it. The song has grown on me a lot since the first time I heard it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Neil,
it's an inside joke, you know. It's for them. So like not
Yeah.
many people are in on the joke. So when they played it at Red Rocks, nobody was in on the joke. And in fact, unless you've seen the movie, which the name is escaping me now. If you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie. I think it's like something of the Wilder People, which is like a movie from New Zealand, and it's hilarious. But I think the inside joke starts from that movie where the constant refrain is that Ricky is a real bad egg. And, you know, it probably has something to do with Rick. I'm sure they say it to him. But in any case, inside joke. Nobody knew what it was at Red Rocks. Some people knew what it was at this show, which made the vibe a little bit better, I guess. But this is them just doing their inside joke thing, which, you know, this band loves inside jokes, like, a lot.
Yes.
So that is what this is an example of. No, I don't know if the song actually hits that well, but, you know, I think they find it funny. So it is what it is. It's all right. Got some cool synth stuff going on in there, and it's like a quick number.
Yeah, exactly. And then we get, you know, what we had been waiting for, I had been waiting for, you know, that Neil thought wasn't coming. But we get Tumble, Mad World Tumble. And before we talk about the music itself, I talked about in my review of last night that I posted this morning, kind of how I'm a little bit wary of these cover sandwiches that they've been doing lately in the second set. You know, they did it with Empress and Green River last weekend in Iowa. And I feel like Mad World was really cool. People were really excited about it. You know, another big bust out, 259 shows. Last played South Farms, the Donnie Darko Halloween show, 11/7/20. Neil was there, in case anyone was wondering.
Yep.
But I feel like Mad World would have hit harder after a 25-minute tumble rather than sandwiched in between. Like, I feel like they were building up some nice momentum, you know, in the funk jam coming out of Tumble, and right as they were about to take off, you know, they kind of did the segue into Mad World. And I understand what they're going for there. You know, we talked about the creative set listing and the, you know, stuff like that. But when you're kind of kneecapping the momentum of the jam, it's harder to regain that momentum from the hard stop at the end of the cover song as you're going back in. You know, as we heard with Empress, you know, there's a really cool segment after Green River, but, you know, I feel like, again, right before they dropped into the cover, they were starting to get somewhere, if that makes sense. You know, the re-entry was fun. Basically, pancakes for 10 minutes.
10 minutes of pancakes.
Like, yeah. I was waiting for, you know, they tease it, but I was waiting for Rick to just play the whole riff for the entire time. I was like, just do it. Like, you know, it's right there. I was surprised that,
and like the whole band was playing it at that point.
Yeah. But, you know, it was a lot of fun. You know, I don't want to diminish that, but I just felt like, you know, 25 minute tumble and then Mad World, incredible. James, what were your thoughts on this sandwich?
I could not agree more with you. I was really into Tumble. I love Tumble. Great dancing song. So the first part of Tumble, I was moving, grooving. The funk jam is awesome. It's like my favorite part of the song. Um, and then they slow down. They go into Mad World. Everything slows down. I'm like, okay, this is where we're going. And I didn't get back into it when they restarted it. I was trying, but it was tough as a listener to go from high energy to low energy right back to high energy. So I totally agree with you. Keep the tumble and then slow it down and give everyone some time to cool off after.
Yeah, Neil? You're muted. Ah.
You got me. So yeah, not much more to add. You get about 23 minutes of Tumble, but like you said, I think the segue into Mad World kind of killed the momentum, so it doesn't actually feel like you got like 23 minutes of Tumble. And then the back half, of course, is just a blistering pancakes jam, which is actually really cool. I actually enjoyed the heck out of that, but that was not
Key
Tumble.
of B flat.
It was just straight pancakes the whole entire way.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole band's playing it, and Rick is just dancing around the pancakes riff a ton, and just never actually does it. But it actually, made that section really cool, and I'm glad they found something on that back half because it felt like they were probably searching, and I think they all just kind of agreed, like, all right, let's just play pancakes. Why not? We'll just jam pancakes out
for
of
a while.
thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And then we get This Old C to close the set. My mom was talking about last night, like interesting placement for the song as a set closer. I thought, hearing the new arrangement with the new outro on the stream when they did it in Charlottesville, I thought it hit way harder live. And I absolutely love what they've done with This Old C. I thought it was great in this slot. It just soars. It's so emotional, and I love what they've done with the song. So, yay, Goose. Well done. James, what are your thoughts on This Old C here?
Oh, it was the highlight of the show for me. I love that song. I was not expecting another song after we finished with the Tumble. I was like, all right, we had a final jam, and I was checking the time, and I figured, they were gonna walk off, and they started This Old C, and I just melted a little bit. Like I love that song so much, and I agree with you. The outro, it gave me a vibe similar to the end of Bingo Tour when they played What's Up. And they just Rick has this amazing peak at the end and then closes it out with the vocals, and it gave me a very similar feeling to that, like a nice round conclusion to a great 2 nights in Montana.
Yeah, agreed.
Exactly.
Neil?
I have nothing to add. James just completely said everything that I could possibly say
perfect,
about that song. That was like, yeah, you nailed it. Absolutely. But yes, I mean, as a closer, interesting. Also, I was surprised that they actually played this again in Montana because this had been played in Montana recently. But
yeah. Well, only, I mean, that was 3 Montana shows and 2.5 years ago.
True. But I mean, it's a pretty rare song. It doesn't pop up all the time, it's not an every fourth show kind of song. But yeah, man, like just such an amazing song. And I agree. This new outro actually makes it like even a little bit more emotional, and no jam on this one, but don't think you're going to get that there in that spot. So
no, it's doing what it needs to do here. And then we get a little sauce infused So Ready encore. Love that from Rick, spicing it up a little. Saving Neil's fantasy night as well.
Yes.
You're lucky that they decided to audible that there because it was supposed to close the first set.
Do we have a printed set list? That was one of my questions.
I did see one. I think Brian posted one earlier. Let me find this.
Brian Huff.
Is that
what we're talking about right now?
Yes. Hey, Brian Huff.
Yes.
My Sweet Island Muffin. Okay, so the written set list for last night was Media, One More Day, Dr. Darkness, Indian River, Big Modern, Seekers, Turned Clouds, So Ready. Very ambitious first set. I'm confused. As always, it's like, did they really think they were going to be able to play that many songs? Who knows? Second set, Yeti, Skucks, Tumble, Mad World, This Old C, Hot Tea, and a Silver Rising encore. Mad World is written in brackets on the set list, which I assume is to note that they were sandwiching it in the Tumble, because I think they did that with Green River. the other night as well. I thought the Silver Rising encore might have been a little more appropriate given, the Moon's presence at the last 2 shows. Also would have given me 1 point and Neil 6 less points.
Alas,
but
it's almost like I've won this thing before.
I'm still beating you.
For
but
now.
James, what are your thoughts on the encore here?
I thought, pretty standard So Ready. I definitely love it as a set 1 closer. That's where it is most of the time, and I think it's great because it brings a lot of energy, and then people are really invigorated going into set break. They come back, they're ready for set 2. It felt a little awkward after the This Old Sea that kind of brought everybody down, and then you bring them right back up with a dance party. But I'm never going to complain about a So Ready.
I am team slow, but I like it with the sauce.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I mean, it's So Ready is what So Ready is. It's not like we can sit here and dissect what makes one version of So Ready better than another.
Yeah.
Speaking of So Ready, I forgot to mention Peter has a new guitar last night. New Fender Custom Shop. Now it looks very similar to his other one. Same color, similar pickup configuration. It's got an F hole now above the pickup. So exciting stuff.
So semi-hollow
guitars in Montana. Yeah, I think it's Loomis said it was a thin line version of his older one. So
interesting.
There we go.
That's Peter, he's always got to have new stuff. It's just like the new stuff is always coming in.
Peter loves new stuff. That's true.
I have to wonder what his apartment looks like. He's just, has like 7 synths in there that he's like used before, and like
just like leaning against the wall in various places, sitting on the coffee table.
Yeah. I know he does have like a Fender Rhodes that he does not tour with, right? I think it's the Fender Rhodes. He did like a bunch of cameos way back in the day with it, and he's like, I don't tour with this because it's going to fall apart if I do. So I mean, just like ridiculous stuff just sitting around this guy's place. It's amazing.
Yeah, totally. Well, we are on the way to Seattle, or Carnation to be exact, for tonight's show at Remlinger Farms, which I believe is just a field in Washington. So I'm excited to, get out here, continue some really cool outdoor venues. Earlier showtime, as we mentioned, tonight, 6:30 Pacific, so 9:30 Eastern, and we will be back tomorrow at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific, to recap tonight's show. It's going to be fun. Yes, we're going on a hike somewhere before we get there. It's going to be lovely. It is beautiful out here in Washington, and I'm looking forward to seeing Goose again. Will we get a jam tonight? Find out tomorrow on the pod, or find out tonight when you watch the show. James, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Drive safe. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, enjoy the show tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Always Almost There, Day After Show Live. We will see you tomorrow. Enjoy the show tonight.